Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the show. It is episode number 300, and it's April 22nd, 2022. I'm joined once again by Kyle Klingman, and show number 300. It's a big guest for this one, I would say, Kyle.
It is a big guest, man. What a great FloFilm. You guys do such a great job of those FloFilms. It's unbelievable. It's what the calling card is, I think, for FloWrestling in a lot of ways. So I'm glad that I was able to watch it last week. Powerful film, and glad we get the guest of the film on this show.
Yeah, absolutely. And real quick, Kyle, I want you're like a wrestling historian. Give me your 1 minute take on Gregor as a wrestler.
Intense and really kind of broke new territory, because when you think about that with Dustin Schlatter in 2006, he had the best true freshman year, what I think, of all time in college wrestling, and then to go next year and to be able to kind of crack the code and win that semifinal match. That was a pretty big deal. So consistency, wrestled in probably the toughest era of 149 to think about that, and to come through with 4 All-American honors. That's a big deal, and come away with an NCAA championship. You're talking about rarefied air there, man. Gregor Gillespie's good.
Yeah, let's bring him on. Gregor Gillespie, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, guys. Yeah, so that was it's super funny that you bring that match up. I was actually speaking to a dad of a kid that I help out, and he was like, man, I watched that match against, he called him the Minnesota guy. He's like, he did, this is 15 years ago. I guess it was 15 years ago. And like, yeah, I'm not super relevant anymore. Dustin Schlatter, at the time, I was trying to explain to him, was like, you know how Yanni was his freshman year? That was Dustin. Like everyone, Yanni, and I love Yanni, and Yanni is incredible. But that's what Dustin Schlatter was then. I think he was undefeated that year. I think he'd only lost one match his true freshman year. I think he lost to DeSalvo from Central Michigan. He goes on to beat guys like, I think he beat Eustace. He beat Esposito a couple times. He was just a killer, and he was 18, maybe 19 years old, a true freshman. And I remember that whole year, Coach Flynn just kept telling me, he's like, you're the guy. You're the guy. You're going to knock off Schlatter. He's like, you know why? I said, why? He goes, look at how many points he scores a match. He's like, all you have to do is score more than 3 points. He wins 3-1, 3-0, 3-2. Every time. He's like, yeah, you're going to score. You just score more points than that. And I was like, yeah, I guess you're right. And it was just, but I was trying to explain to that dad how good Dustin Schlatter really was back then. And it was such an incredible thing to be a part of that weight class in that era. And I think you guys did that FloFilm, kind of segue into the FloFilms here. Right? If we, what way to do it, then the bracket, right? When you guys did that show, what was it? The bracket was like, that's what it was called last year. That was 1 year after. Yeah, that was 1 year after I won that weight class. It was then the following year was Schlatter, Metcalf, Caldwell, Chirell, Palmer. The list goes on. JP O'Connor, but like, people don't realize a lot of those guys were in my weight that year. Like when I beat Schlatter, I think Schlatter the round before that had beaten Burroughs, it was just as solid of a weight class. So, should do another FloFilm called the second best bracket.
Was that the year before?
Yeah, no, I mean, the year after in 2008, I think it was not even close. It was an insane bracket, but yeah. Cracking the code with Dustin Schlatter. You figure out how to take him down, you could probably beat him, right?
When did Flynn's telling you, you're the guy. All you got to do is score 3. You're the guy. I think you're 7th the year before, which is good, but like Schlatter was on a whole other thing. When did you actually believe, like, I can do this? Or maybe I'm going to do it?
I remember 2 things like super distinctly that Coach Flynn said to me. Now, obviously, Coach Flynn, and how he can, he has a way with words, but a lot of times the things he says are funny and they're not meant to be funny. It's just the way his mannerisms, the way he says things. And I remember 2 times that year, and obviously these both were jokes. So I want to just preface this by saying these are not serious things that Flynn was saying. And again, obviously this was, I guess it was 2006, summer of 2006. So, it was a long time ago, over a decade ago. So we didn't have the same cell phone technology, and you used house phones a little more. I was home in the summer between freshman year and sophomore year, for whatever, a couple of weeks, just short visit home, and I got a call. I was out playing badminton in the backyard with my brother, and my dad comes out of the garage. He says, "Hey, Coach Flynn's on the phone for." I said, "Oh, great." So I walk into the garage. I pick up the phone. He goes, I feel like corny even doing this, but he was pretending to be Dustin Schlatter. He's like, this is Dustin Schlatter. I just did 300 pull-ups. What are you doing? And he was like, kind of like messing with me. And he's like, you better go do 400 or something. And that was one thing I remember. He always like teased me with stuff like that. And then the other thing I remember him saying, because everyone was so high on Dustin Schlatter, as they should have been. He was a true freshman national champ. I think when people think about that, they forget to understand that means he won a national title less than a year removed from high school. He graduated high school in June or July, and in March, so we're talking 9 months, he won an NCAA title. Like it's insane. So like people were really high on him. Coach Flynn was like sick of it. I think he said something one day. He was like, "I'm so sick of hearing about this guy." He's like, "Right, you're going to be the guy. You're going to be the guy." And like we were kind of like slated to meet at the Southern Scuffle that year. Okay, so like we didn't know that Jordan Leem was going to be in that mix. We hadn't really like accounted for him yet. We knew he was good, obviously, but like when we were looking at the brackets and what teams were there, the Southern Scuffle that year, I thought we were going to, at some point run into Schlatter. And Flynn, again, this is a joke. So, don't think this is actual coaching advice from Flynn. But he's like, "I'm so sick of hearing about this guy. Gregor, when you walk out there, I want you to walk out, shake hands, don't even get in your stance. Just fucking punch him in the face." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I want you to let him know there's someone else at the weight class. Let him know that no one, like there's going to be a guy that's not going to put him on a pedestal. That guy is you." And obviously that was like a metaphor. It wasn't.
Hey, I think you muted yourself, Gregor. I think you might have muted yourself on accident. Greg, can you hear me? I don't know if he can hear me. This is great stuff. Oh, yep.
Sorry, someone called me. I think it muted. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah. So Coach told you to punch him in the face.
Hold on here. Wait, hold on.
No problem.
Okay, I'm sorry. Someone called me, and I think it muted me. Are we good?
Okay. Yeah, we're good. Coach Flynn told you to punch him in the face.
Coach
it wasn't real, it was a metaphor.
There, shake hands, punch him in the face. And obviously that was a joke and a metaphor for, let him know that there's someone else at the weight class, that you're not going to put him on a pedestal. You're not going to just roll over for him, you're here to compete. You're going to have, if you're going to win, you're going to have to fight for it, And obviously I lost to Jordan Leem that year at the Scuffle. So I didn't get to wrestle Schlatter, but I don't know why I had a confidence that I didn't think Schlatter was unbeatable. And I don't know if it was me being young and naive and just unaware of how good he really was and how, and I really don't have a problem saying this. I'm, quite a bit older now and a bit more mature, but I don't think that I was as good, technically speaking, as Dustin Schlatter was that year or, at any point during college. But there's so much more that goes into winning than the better guy. Who competes better? That's a skill. Is someone banged up? That's something. Longevity is a thing in this sport. It's a long season. Who can stay healthy the longest? Who made weight the right way? So many more things, who can read the referee better. So a lot of people watch that match and they talk about how you backed up so much, man. That you would have lost that match. I know the rules were different back then. You have to have an ability to read the referee. If he's letting you do something, you do it as long as you can before you get penalized for it, And against a guy like Dustin Schlatter, you guys remember how he wrestled. If you pressured back into him, you were going to get ducked. You were going to get shrugged. Exactly. Yeah. So you had to, I thought strategically speaking, that was like a masterpiece, beating a guy that, literally was thought to be unbeatable,
Did you do that prep? Hey, don't, maybe back up a little bit, right? Or don't be overly aggressive. Was there focus throughout the year or as it led up to NCAAs on how to wrestle this guy specifically should you meet?
No, I think there was more of a very general, vague, suggestion from Coach Flynn. Don't push into him. Get him to follow you a little bit, maybe fake touch to get his hands come up. Because, Schlatter defensively was about as sound as they come. He keeps his hands in front of his legs. He doesn't overreact to fakes. kind of draw him in, get his hands to come up and shoot hard. And, that was kind of the game plan. But I think there's just a general suggestion from Coach Flynn: don't push into him. Stay out of tie-ups where your hands are in the same spot for very long. But I think one thing that Coach Flynn really, really did a great job of instilling in me from day one was like, don't focus on the other guy. Don't worry about what he's doing so much. Picture what you're doing. And I remember one time, it was actually before that. This is actually, I don't think I've ever even mentioned this to anyone anymore. Not that it's, anything bad, but it was probably 2 weeks, maybe within a week. I don't know. It was somewhere leading up to that nationals that I won. And Coach Flynn told me he wanted me to go in the lounge, like our athlete lounge. I mean, it's just a couple couches and a TV or whatever back then. And he's like, go in there. And I want you to pull up 3 or 4 matches. Ones where you won, ones where you thought you really wrestled well, ones where, you were in a really good low stance and you were shooting well and you were running up to your feet on your finishes. Watch those matches. So he had me watch, 3 or 4 matches where I wrestled really well. And that's something that I think is super important. I don't think it's necessarily that great to watch the guy that you're going to compete against and start picturing what they're great at. You start to forget about what you do great. And I told a kid last night that I was helping out because he got, he's down at the War at the Shore or whatever last week. He was watching a kid that he was wrestling on Flow. I was like, dude, stop that, man. Don't do that. You know who you should be watching? You. Go pick a match where you ducked the kid under 5 times and made him fall on his face and held his head down when you let him up. Go watch that. Remember how good you are, So, yeah, long answer for that, but.
Oh, that's awesome. That was fascinating to hear all that backstory and your perspective on that. Another thing, and I do want to get to Fight of Your Life, but I now that we're on wrestling, I want to talk a little bit more. I didn't remember till we made this film that you won in the finals in overtime and were almost dead to rights. It was like a defensive scramble. Right, you were kind of beating the position, but you wiggled your way out of it. But
I couldn't imagine being more taken down without it being a takedown. And again, I have I'm not going to, I don't have to sit here and defend a position. I won the match. They can't take it back. I definitely think under different circumstances, had it been a Big Ten referee, had it been now, because I think they give it less reaction time now. I mean, today, right now, sure, that's probably a takedown. He had both of my legs. Fortunately for me, I don't really know what you even call that position, but I'm pretty good out of that position where if someone has 2 of your legs and you whizzer to your hip and come up on a knee, so you're not on your butt. If you stay on your butt, it's takedown, But yeah, he did have 2 of my legs and I was on my butt for, flash in the pan and got up and I put him into a crackdown position where I think I'm probably one of the hardest guys in history to score on from that position. And, the rest is history.
You're a freak, man. It was wild. It was wild. It was a nice refresher because you go to all these NCAAs and you can't remember every single finals or match or whatever. But yeah, that was a good one. Okay, segue from the bracket, the greatest bracket, right? Segue in FloFilms, which you started 5 minutes ago. So first of all, I guess just your initial reaction after you watched this film. I assumed you watched it.
I have, yeah, several times. I got to start by saying, man, you guys are about as great as they come with doing documentary stuff and films and whatever you call them, flow films, documentary, mini series, docu-series, whatever. You guys, and I mentioned this to Kyle Sermonero, my best friend. You probably remember him, wrestler from back in the day, but he's like my brother, my best friend, and he had watched it. And we were talking about all the great flow films over the years. And I said, dude, there is absolutely no difference in the quality of video that if you watch like a Netflix original or a flow film. They're as well put together as anything out there. It is a professional film. It is not something that some guy did with a handheld camera. It's unbelievable how good the flow films really are, and the editing and the music and the way things flow into each other. And then I obviously knew my parts and what I had said. Obviously, it was a while back that we filmed. I remember my parts, and I remember it's my story. So my parts aren't going to necessarily make me get emotional, but I'll tell you what, man, there were some parts in there that had the water flowing, man. There were a couple parts, and obviously the couple people talking about the siblings and family members that they had lost. But I'll tell you what, the parts when Coach Flynn was talking, man, it was tough for me to tough for me, not in a bad way, in a good way, you know. And I texted Coach Flynn after, and I have no problem at this point in my life telling people that I love them and telling them that I appreciate them for the things that they've done for me, and, you know, telling someone that I don't take what they've done for me for granted. So the second that thing, that film got done, I was actually finishing it. This is kind of how, when I was watching it at my house, I finishing the time I got in my car, I got to the gym, and I was sitting there before I was training a couple guys, and I put it up on the phone holder in my car, and I watched the last few minutes. And the part where Coach Flynn goes, the guy was like, Gregor, we had a guy that did place 4 times and did win a national title. And when I see him now and he's doing all these things correct as a professional athlete, he's like, who knows what we would have had. And the guy goes, he could have been special. And Coach Flynn, you know, he said he was special, man. And it was like, I don't know, man. There's just something about the way that Coach Flynn talks about me. It just got me freaking really teared up. And I immediately texted Flynn after that, and I told him, you know, I didn't know what you were going to say. I knew that they'd interviewed you. And, you know, it's hard to remember sometimes. Like, you got people out there that really fucking care about you, man. And it's like, don't take that for granted. And I wanted to let Coach Flynn know that after watching that film. And I texted him, actually called him. I think he was busy, so I shot him a text. And then later that night, I got on the phone with him and Tanya, his wife, and I talked to them for, you know, well over an hour. And I just wanted to let them know that, you know, thanks for having my back. And, you know, that's something that I definitely don't take for granted. And, you know, it's not really cliche to say this, man, that him telling me that I needed to go into rehab that day probably saved my life, man. Who knows if I'd be sitting here if that weren't, you know, the way things transpired. So
yeah, pretty awesome. The relationships you build with, you know, college coaches, right? Or probably coaches of any sport and any level, but when you can really connect the way that you did, and I have connections with my coaches, and I'm sure Kyle, and it's just everybody does. So that's pretty cool. When I first reached out to you and said, hey, you know, I kind of know like a little bit about your story. I don't know any details, but I think there's some. Would you be interested in like doing a thing with us? What did you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm super open about my story. Anyone who's not is probably, if they have a story that has, and there's no happy ending, obviously, because like you're in sobriety, you're not recovered, you're in recovery, you know. So I don't want to say it has a happy ending. Things are going well. So if you don't tell that story, you're probably doing a disservice to people that need your help, you know. And that's something that I was told very early on, is pass it on, man. And like, you keep how your good sobriety and your good mental health by helping people. And well, shit, man, I'd be lying if I said that I didn't want to be involved in a FloFilm. I mean, that's got to be part of it too, man. That's super cool. And what an honor that would be. So that was some of the things that were going through my head when you first contacted me. But I think more than anything, this should exemplify right here why I was interested in doing it. I can't even count how many messages from people that I'm close with, from acquaintances, from strangers, from random accounts on Instagram, saying essentially this: that was the most important film Flo has ever done. You're going to help someone with that message. And I give the same response back every time. And it's, I hope it helps someone. I can't imagine that it wouldn't. And I hope it's exactly what someone needs to hear right now, you know. And I think it'd be silly for me not to tell my story. And I've always been open about it. So it's not like I'm, hey, coming out of and telling people for the first time, you know?
Yeah.
So
to that point, like sometimes we've done films with people and it is kind of, and maybe it's not the gravity of this one, but it's just struggles within their life. And they're like, this is the first time I've ever done this. And it's kind of felt therapeutic, or like to a degree. Was it like that at all with you, or not so much because you had been so open about it?
Well, no, sure. Anytime you talk about it, it's going to bring you back to some of those situations, right? So even when I was on the phone with Coach Flynn a couple weeks ago, when I was talking to him about it, and we were talking about that night when I called him, or he called me, I can't recall, and I was crying on the phone, and he said, you call them right now, son. It's like, tell them you need to come in. You need some help, man. And it's like, I can fucking smell the smell of that garage that I was in when I, talked about that story. And it's like, it certainly is therapeutic. I think anytime you talk about something like that, it reminds you where you were. And one thing that my sponsor, who's near and dear to my heart, said to me from day one was, don't forget how bad it was, So keep that. It's got, that part has to stay fresh. Don't let that part kind of escape your memory. You remember how bad it was,
Yeah.
So I think telling the story is important, because when you do that, hey man, holy shit, that was pretty crazy the way that I was living, man. And like, man, what a chaotic nightmare full of just insanity,
Yeah.
So I think that is therapeutic would be the right word. Yeah.
Okay. Did you learn anything in general or about yourself through this process? Either whether it was the days we spent with you in the interview, or since it came out and the response you've gotten.
Well, I guess, and I remember we had spoke, after we filmed, and you guys were deciding the direction of the film that you wanted to go, if you wanted to do another high level athlete, if you're going to do another athlete from another sport, and then obviously, excuse me, you went with the direction of a team, or, that area where those guys were from down there. And man, I thought that was such a genius move. And some people had said to me, like, what the hell, man, what was that? They have you, and then they have some guys, I didn't really know who they were. I was like, no, you're missing the point. The point of it was that it touches everybody. It's like, You've got a guy who's a top 10 guy in the UFC who won the Division I Nationals, and it can happen to him. And then you've got a dad of a kid who, a city cop. And then you've got a wrestling coach who's lost 17 guys in a little town in New Jersey I've never heard of. And they had, 70. And it's like, yeah, man, it's everywhere. So I think, and I want to make sure that I say this before I forget, when you said if I had any reservations about doing this, if I was excited about doing it. No, and I never once thought about not doing it. And if anyone, the only reason to not do something like this would be fear of being judged, right? Like man, people might think poorly of me because I was, at one point I was a drug addict and I was an alcoholic and I had these issues going on. Be very careful when you start judging people like that, because it can literally grab anybody, so that same judgmental person that's doing something, pointing the finger and, making accusations or judgments on someone. It might be your kid one day, and you might need someone like myself or my sponsor or some of my friends in the program to help someone you love. So remember, that right there is why I had no reservations about doing it.
Sure. Man, I remember this from spending time with you, and it's like right back again. Your energy is infectious. Like you are just like on a freaking 10 out of 10. And you've been told this before. I can't be the first person.
I got a motor. Why don't you ever stop moving? My jiu-jitsu coach and I went up and climbed the mountain a couple weeks ago, and he's like, Jesus, dude, do you ever stop moving? And I said, why do you think I'm so lean? I'm shredded because I never stop moving.
Never. That's a great segue. Really... Oh, go ahead. No,
I was just kidding around. I said I eat really clean too.
yeah. Steak and asparagus or burnt broccoli.
Yeah. Yep.
You're a very regimented guy too. I learned that you do the same things every day.
Absolutely. Well, I mean that's just an addictive personality kind of thing. If you are someone who is prone to being overly indulgent in things, you need your crosshairs aimed in the perfect direction. So if your crosshairs are aimed on drugs and booze and going and doing bad things, you're going to be fucking full steam ahead at those things. If they're aimed in the right direction, sure. Do I probably overtrain sometimes and get a little neurotic about the foods I'm eating? Yes. But I'd much rather have that problem,
Yeah. You mentioned you got, I think you were your jiu-jitsu coach you took in climbing mountains. I wanted to talk about this anyways. Like, explain to me, and we can talk about fishing too, which I know is one of your passions. But climbing mountains, it's not like pitch and rope and like climb. It's like hiking.
Okay, so like so I hate saying hiking because like when my jiu-jitsu coach is one tough dude, like super tough. Like he like fucks me up. Like he's super tough.
Yeah.
Can I swear on this? Sorry if I
go ahead. It's the internet.
All right, cool. Yeah, he like fucks me up bad. He's a tough dude, and he's been like busting my chops. He's like, man, I'll climb him out. He's like, and I have the record on that app Strava for running up and summiting one of these 4,000 foot peaks in the Catskills. And he's like, I'm gonna blow your record. I'm like, okay, man, we'll see. So we go up there, dude, and like I knew this was gonna happen. I've taken a lot of people climbing, dude. If you're not in climbing shape, it's tiring. It's not. This is rock climbing when you're rappelling with ropes and carabiner. It's not what we're doing. We're going up a very steep trail. So essentially it is hiking, but like you do need some gear. So when we got up above 3,500 feet, it was sheer ice. So you need some spikes. In the dead of winter, you need snowshoes, you need ski goggles, you need base layer, you need insulated boots, you need ski goggles, you need crampons, maybe an ice axe here or there. So like, yeah, it's not just hiking. I have 2 Garmin GPS satellite messengers that I pay for on like a monthly phone plan with. We're very serious about this. My girlfriend got me into it, and like obviously, you know, 1 or 100, I'm full steam ahead, and I'm like, dude, when I realized how amazing and how fun this was, I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm ever gonna fish again. And I have a few times, but man, it's tough. If I have a choice between the mountains or a fish, I'm going to the mountains. But anyways, back to my coach. I look back, we're maybe a quarter mile into the climb. He's back there with his hands on his knees, bent over, his face is white. And I'm like, hey, what's happening, man? And he apologized. He literally said, you know, he's busting chops originally, but he said, he's like, yo, man, I take back everything I said. I take back everything I said about that. So, but for like a reference for people out there who don't know kind of some of the conditions that we hike in, and like my girlfriend is about as tough as they come. We hiked one day this winter. I guess it would be in February. Yeah, it must have been January or February. We were up north, really, you know, up in the mountains in the Adirondacks, which is northern New York, up, you know, right under Canada. And we went out at 5 a.m. and we did a 21 miler. I think it was 15 hours. We did 2 peaks, which were about 5,000 feet apiece. And it was -30.
What?
And yeah, it's -30, but that was at base elevation, and that was not accounting for wind chill. That was in the parking lot of the trailhead. So that's at maybe 1,500 feet. So now we're going up another 3,000 feet. And on top of that, we're in a parking lot where there's trees around, there's no wind. I can't imagine how cold it was. I mean, there was a point, and I swear to God, there was a point on the way back where we had like 7 miles to go. When we start in the pitch black and we finish in the pitch black, we got headlamps on, and there was me, my buddy Joe Ordway, and my girlfriend, obviously. And Joe's going to be, I think he's at the academy to be a forest ranger in New York State right now. So he's a real deal outdoorsman. We were all like, you know, conversational and having a great time for the first 10 hours. The last 7 miles, it was pitch black. Not any of us were saying a word. We're just marching forward. Every step was the worst step of my entire life. And like, what do? Do you say, fuck this, I'm going home, I'm done? That's what you're already doing. You're already going home. So the only option you have is to just keep going forward. I have satellite messengers. Dude, to get rescued where we were, I mean, you are in the middle of the woods, in the mountains. It is not easy to get to. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this, the single hardest thing I've done. Like the hardest. And I'll send you a picture after. I'll text it to you of my girlfriend's face, what it looks like if you have any moisture on your face at -30. So it's like there's a lot of like terms, and I can't explain everything, but comfortably cool. You can't start sweating. If it's that cold and you start sweating because you bundled up, her eyelashes, her eyebrows, and, you know, any facial hair that, you know, little like, you know, the fuzzies that people have on their face, froze. It was froze. It looked like a snowflake. Yeah. No, her eyelashes had like layers of ice growing off of them. Yeah. So it's dangerous out there. Like all right. So I think when I say the like -30, I think people don't really understand that. Like if I told you it's 30 degrees outside, you'd be like, wow, that's kind of cold, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So 30 degrees is kind of cold. Now, is 90 degrees is pretty hot, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The difference between 30 and 90 is the same as 30 and negative 30. So when you wipe your nose on your sleeve, on your coat, it's instantly frozen. It's hard. Yeah. You can't take your gloves off to do anything. It's fun because it's dangerous and hard, though, you know.
This is you with your crosshairs pointed at a mountain, right? Like,
yeah.
This is...
I'm going to see if I can do this. Here's my hiking shelf. You can see my gear.
Gear? Okay, yeah.
So now these are my new boots here. So this is my snowshoes. These are my packs. I mean, there's just endless gear. You know, it's like I have so much gear that I need more shelving, you know. But that's I feel like a good problem to have, you know.
Could be worse. Now, I know you were like counting the summits, or you were like chasing a bunch of summits. Where are you at with all that?
Oh, I have to ask my girlfriend. I think we're at 4. I'm at 40, and there's 46 high peaks in the Adirondack. So a high peak is technically 4,000 feet. Okay, so anything above 4,000 feet. And some people out in Colorado that maybe see this show, like, oh my God, that's nothing. We have 14,000 footers. Yeah, I know. It's about the gain. It's not about it's elevation gain. So if you start at 1,000 feet and you end up at 5,000 feet in, I don't know, 10 miles, you gained 3,500 feet in 14 miles. That's hard. We have some of the most rugged terrain in the Adirondacks. And the challenge is the 46 high peaks, which are all above 4,000 feet in the Adirondacks. I believe I'm at 40 right now. She's at 37 because she took a day off after my fight last about a year ago, my fight.
Yeah.
We went up there for 8 days and she had to take a day off. So she missed 3 that I have. So,
all right.
Yeah.
All right. I guess speaking to the fighting, segueing there, man, I love seeing you fight. You're highly entertaining. Anything on the horizon, or where are we at? I know you haven't had a whole lot of fights lately.
Just very frustrated lately. I mean, I'm sure you've seen some of the stuff that I posted in the past couple months about I've called out Tony Ferguson. I called out Mike Chandler. I asked for RDA. And they all say no. They turn it down every time. And it's like, the really frustrating part was like, dude, Tony, I called you out. We both fought like 1 week apart last year. We both been available for a year now. It's like, dude, we've both been the only guys in the top 10 that didn't have fights. They offered us to fight 3 or 4 times. I literally would have signed it that day. And he just kept saying no. So then, I mean, I indirectly called out Chandler and Tony again a couple of times on Instagram. I posted, I don't know if you saw like a video of me shooting double legs like a million miles an hour. And then I had my buddy Nick DiNatale, he's like superimposed over the video, the picture of the bracket where I like shit stomped Chandler at the Nationals in 2009 when I beat him like 10-2. And then I put a picture up that's on like a full size poster of me like on top of Mike Chandler with a bar tilted sitting on my mom's piano at home. I'm just trying to like, dude, and I don't like talking shit, man. I'm like such a good, humble guy. And like, I do not want to talk shit, but it's like, I don't know what else I need to do to get these guys to accept the fight. Then a couple of weeks, I guess it would be a month now, that guy Islam Makhachev, his guy pulled out of the fight. So they offered me that fight on 8 days notice. And I was like, absolutely not. And then a week later, they offered me RDA on 5 days notice. And this is not the UFC's fault. I want to be very clear about this. The UFC is the fucking best company in the world, but they can't force anyone to fight. And they can't force me to fight someone that I'm not interested in fighting, that's not in the top, that's not ranked ahead of me. But at the end of the day, like, I'm 35 years old. I got a couple of years of this left. I'm not doing this forever. If I'm not making a run towards the belt in the next year, then what am I doing here? My body is not going to start feeling better. You know what I mean? I'm not going to get more explosive and faster in the next 2 years. So, yeah, it's just a frustrating situation. And then like the RDA fight, when they offered it to me on 4 days notice, and like the UFC has to do that. They're trying to find a guy to replace someone last second. It's not the UFC. And this, obviously RDA would have taken that fight But I said no for 4 days. No, I'm not fighting someone. They offered it to me on Monday. That means I would have had to fly out the next day. Like, I'm not doing that. And then when he fought, I asked for him after, and he said no. So, like, okay. It's just super frustrating, you know. But I'll tell you right now, it's like, I got to fight someone that's getting me closer to the belt. I'm 35 years old, you know. I don't want to do this forever. I obviously started this fighting journey with one thing in mind, and it's like I'm fucking 14-1. I have 12 finishes. Half of my fights in the UFC are bonus fights. Like, what do you want? You know, like, you want me to have more followers? Is that what it is? I think that must be a part of it, you know? Like, just, I don't get it.
Do you ever think that, like, you do need to shit talk, or you do need to have antics?
I did that, and they just fucking ignored me. It's like, I literally embarrassed Mike Chandler. I put up a picture of the bracket and a picture, like a poster-sized fucking picture of me, like, tilting him at the Nationals, and I posted the score where I'd be like,
yeah.
I don't know. So no, I don't think I need to do more of that, because everyone just ignored me. There was crickets from them, like, you know. No, this is super funny too. You know what I love is when people, like, after I called out Tony Ferguson, and they're like, stop fucking picking on Tony. He's old. What, you calling him out now when he's old? I'm like, dude, he's a fucking year older than me, man. Like, what are you talking about, man? Like, I'm old too, you know, like, but yeah, so that's where we're at. I mean, ideally right now, I would hope that maybe I get the fight with Beneil Dariush. I really like that fight. But otherwise we wait. So.
All right. Well, I'll anxiously wait, because as much, I know, like watching you wrestle, I like watching you fight, and I think you're entertaining. Like you said, the bonus rates, or not bonus in wrestling, right? Bonus win money.
No, and I will say that you always do. You're a man of your word. You do text me after every fight. You do.
I got you.
Yep.
Okay, in wrestling, like, you know, how much do you keep up with the wrestling? Did you follow the NCAA season? Does anything excite you about the upcoming freestyle and Greco season?
Okay, so this might be an unpopular opinion, and I hope I'm not rubbing anyone the wrong way here, but I had a real issue this year, and I wasn't vocal about it, as in like yelling about it on like social media, but I wasn't quiet about it. I talked to Yanni's dad on the phone for about fucking 3 hours the week after the Nationals about this. I spoke to Yanni a little bit. I talked to Coach Flynn, you know, the people that I'm involved with still in the wrestling community, and I kind of like voiced my grievances. My brother, I spoke with him about the same thing. But dude, what the fuck is happening where there's guys getting like their 8th try? Like, I don't get that. Why is someone 28 years old, man? Like, dude, what are you doing? The reason that it's so special when you place 4 times, or you win more than once, is because it's so time sensitive. If you don't get the job done within 4 years, sorry, man, that hurts, right? It stings, which means when someone does do that, it's so special. If you get unlimited tries, it's like, well, man, it definitely takes something away from it. And I'll tell you when, and I didn't like publicly boycott the NCAAs, you know, this is not what I'm saying, but I said something to my brother this year, the first day of the Nationals. I was like, yeah, I'm not watching this year, dude. I can't take this shit, man. It's so fucking annoying. Like, it bothers me seeing all these guys just get extra unlimited tries. I'm like, I'm not watching. And then when all those old guys started losing in the first day, I'm like, I'm back in, I'll watch. You know, and like I think Marianelli lost, and Mičić and Ironman and those guys lost. And I respect those guys. They are fucking so good at wrestling. Move on with your life. You know what I mean? Like, go get a job, go fight, go coach. You don't get unlimited tries just because you didn't do as good as you wanted to. Man, if that were the case, I would have gone and tried to win another one too, man. Like, you just don't get to. And that's why it either hurts really fucking bad, or it feels so good when you do win, because of the time sensitivity. Sorry, this gets me a little fired up, but so that's kind of the gist of it. It just seems like there's so many little weird loopholes now that are happening. It seems like they're giving out, like, obviously the COVID years, and this sounds so bad, but somebody has to get fucked. You know what I mean? Yeah. It sounds terrible, but you can't just keep doing the cycle, right? So here's what happens. Okay, so the seniors who missed their 2020 year, right? All right, Well, shit, we give him that year back. Fine. That makes sense. Okay, cool. But then we give that whole next year, the 2021 year, we get that year didn't count. Okay, so now this year, think of how many young guys weren't on the podium this year because guys in their 5th and 6th years, okay, or 7th or 8th years. And then on top of that, what if the guys that were on those teams weren't even in the lineups because that spot was being occupied by a guy that was in his 8th year? So you remedied the problem. Those guys who missed the COVID year, they got their problem solved. But what about these guys? Are you going to give these guys an extra year now too because they lost their spot because of a guy that got an extra year of COVID? The merry-go-round has to stop and someone just has to get fucked. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, but again, it just like so many little weird things now that it kind of like tweak the eligibility, it seems like. So for one, it looks like they're giving medical red shirts out to anyone who, bruises their kneecap. It appears that you can get an Olympic red shirt if you just say you're wrestling freestyle. I don't know. I guess when I saw like the Big Tens this year, I turned it on. It just so happened to be Marianelli. And they were talking about how he was the first 4-time Big Ten champ from Iowa in 2 decades. But you forgot to mention that he got to wrestle it 6 times. You know what I mean? Like, or 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
You got an extra okay. But it takes something away from it when it's, I sound like I'm a hater right now, but I'm not. I really, really respect these guys. And I think Marianelli's as tough as they come. And I think Ironman, he might be the sole guy to have beaten Yanni. I think he's incredible at wrestling. But don't you want to move on with life? Like I remember at the end of my and I didn't even redshirt. It was the end of my 4 years. And I remember, I've said this to you, Mark, my sentence was served. I did my time. It was too that was hard, man.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's time for a break. Don't you want to, I don't know. And like people say, well, you fucking fight now, man. It's not the same. I'm not making weight twice a week. I'm not hopping on a bus or a plane and flying to a different fucking state every week. And I'm not trying to do schoolwork in between 6:30 lift and 3:30 practice. Well, I'm cutting weight. It's not the same, It's just that's it. I don't know. I guess that's me going off on a rant now about why guys are getting too many years.
That's all right. I like your rant. And I don't know, this may send you on another rant. It may not. But do you have any opinions on NIL, name, image, likeness?
I knew that was coming. I literally knew that was coming. I think it's a double-edged sword. So, do I think wrestlers should be compensated for the work? Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, it changes the sport, doesn't it? So now, wrestling, why did we all wrestle up until the NIL? Well, shit, it wasn't because we were getting rich off of it, right? It certainly wasn't that. So it must have been for pure love. So I guess you would have to say that it changes the purity of the sport, right? It changes the integrity. It's going to make people act differently. And I'm not hating on the guy. I fucking follow him on Instagram. AJ Ferrari is an entertaining guy. But would he still be doing those same shenanigans and antics if he wasn't going to get a sponsorship from Barstool Sports or the Nelk Boy or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, people are acting that way because it's incentivized. So I don't know, is this going to turn into the WWE a bit like when Conor came into the UFC? It started looking like that. I have always really loved that whole, and it's so like cliche, but watch an interview from, I don't know, it's still something you see. Like, watch any of those Penn State guys get interviewed after they win a national title. It's that college Midwestern, just a good, wholehearted American boy interview. I worked real hard to get here. I want to thank my parents. That's like that good boy college like interview. That's not going to be what it looks like moving forward if the NIL thing, starts handing out, the big people start handing out money. And then the other thing too, and like, again, do not want to like name call and sound like I'm hating. I think Roman Bravo Young is one of the best guys to ever do it. But I don't know if this is hearsay. Maybe you guys can tell me a little bit more about this, but I heard he was asking for like $160,000 from alumni to come back next year. I mean, okay, so then what? Let's say that happens. What's Yanni worth? Can't Yanni be like, well, I'm not wrestling then if Cornell alumni doesn't give me 180 grand because I've won 3. And then what if Strachey comes in and he says, well, what the hell, man? I got 3 more tries, so I could win 5. So I need 200 grand. That's a slippery slope, you know? So, I mean, have you guys heard anything about that Roman Bravo Young thing, or is that a rumor, or is that something that actually?
I haven't heard that, though. I've heard those types of things just in general.
Yeah. Well,
how much truth there is.
I hope I'm not starting a bad rumor. I don't want to like start a bad rumor here, but I got a tweet from someone that it was a wrestling tweet, and it was saying how Roman Bravo Young is asking for that amount of money. And, you know, I apologize if that isn't incorrect information, but I can't imagine that someone isn't doing that. So even if it, you know, someone's doing that.
Well, there are. They're called they're called collectives, and I have a tiny understanding of this, but it basically not the schools themselves, but these groups of alumni are creating organizations. I guess organization is the right word, and they're collectives. So it's these group of alumni come together and pull their money together, and they can now strike NIL deals with the athletes, and it's legal. And for exactly what the terms are, I don't know. I just know the general concept that, and it's pretty public. You know, I think you can look this up, and there's some guys on our FloWrestling team who have dug deeper into this, and they probably put articles out about it. But I hear them when they're researching it, they're like, oh, this school has a collective, Penn State has a collective, and I was like, does Missouri? They're like, yeah, and I mean, on and on, Iowa, and you know, I don't even know. There's a big number of schools that are
slippery slope. Because that, and again, I don't want to sound like all those people that I named that were saying like, hey, if he's worth this much, then I need this much. If that's something that's happening and you're worth money, don't be an idiot and like, you know, cut off your nose to spite your face. If you can make that money, then if Roman Bravo Young gets that money, Strachey should go ask for more. You know, and don't cut off your nose to spite your face. But I don't think it should be happening in the first place. Again, maybe I sound like one of those guys that I used to be, he's just an old timer. What does he know? He's not with the times anymore. But man, I just think it changes the purity and the integrity of the sport, man. You always watch it and you know these guys, when you go to that NCAA tournament and you're sitting in the stands and you're looking down those 8 mats and you're saying, dude, those guys are fucking all taped up and they're, you know, crying if they lose and jumping for joy when they win. And, you know, like there is no incentive behind that besides the feelings that you get, you know? So, and there's something special about that, knowing that these guys suffer so much for a feeling, not for any money. You know what I mean? Like, isn't that crazy?
That's a great way to put it. And I think that's why. No, I don't know that this will, and who knows, 10 years down the road, maybe it will change the tournament. But that's what you described is why going to that tournament is so awesome, because see what you, Gregor, are willing to put yourself through in a cage for a bag of money is one thing, and the feeling goes along with it, right? It feels good to win, I'm sure, and you want the belt.
I wouldn't do it for free.
Right. But you wrestled, which is. I've heard a lot of people say, maybe you too, that it's actually tough. You just said it, right? NCAA is tougher. School classes, wait once, twice a week. But to see what happens at the NCAA tournaments, amazing.
Yeah, and then it changes something about how you view the guys, right? So if I go watch and I know that, hey, you know, so-and-so has a side deal with some rich alumni if they win, and then you see them win and you see them celebrating, you know that it's from a bag. You know, it's not for, man, I did something that I really set out to do from a young age, and the feeling of winning and knowing that I was the best and making my mom and dad and my family and everyone that's been behind me proud was enough. That changes something for the athlete, and it certainly changes something from the spectator standpoint. So
I don't even know if there's a middle ground. Maybe.
I don't know if it's good or bad.
Yeah, I don't know. It's good that they are able to get paid, and It's definitely good that they're able to get paid. But I see your point of changing the dynamic of the intent or motivation.
Yeah, well, again, like, I guess what's more important then? Is it that I am satisfied as a spectator, or that the guy actually doing the work is getting compensated for? Who knows, right?
We could go on for days, I'm sure.
Yeah, you could. But I'll tell you what, I was after I tuned in, I started watching day 2 of the Nationals this year, and I'm really fucking glad I did, man. It was exciting. It was really cool, and obviously last year was not the same with the no people in the stands and the Ivy League's not there. It didn't feel like a national tournament, and like the guys still beat good guys, but watching that finals was like, what? There's no one there. Like, What is this? So yeah, that was exciting, and I'm glad that I was able to bring myself to watch. And obviously, circumstances permitting, those older guys lost early on in the tournament, and I was like, fuck, I'm back in. So, yeah.
Awesome. Just last thing, I know, you went through this in the film, right? You won as a sophomore. You're like, the goal is now I'm supposed to win 3, right? And coming out of your senior year with 4 All-Americans, just 1 title, how did you feel about your career, and has that changed at all as you look back and reflect?
Oh, man. I think my answer to that changes with time. It's like, first, well, let me start by saying, do you think I could apply for an Olympic red shirt and maybe get another try at this? I mean, everyone else is getting 5th and 6th years. Can I come back?
You can apply. No, yeah, I'm sure you can apply.
I mean, I could certainly. I was hurt one of those years. Didn't you see the tape on my leg?
I did.
Fuck, the year that I won. That's not going to work. So no. Anyways, yeah, I think that answer changes with time, and I think had I won 3 titles, who knows? I probably wouldn't be competing still. I think that, and I don't know if that's even the right thing to say. I would say, had I done everything right, because I do things right now. I eat right. I train 3 times a day, 6 days a week. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I go to bed most of the time at a reasonable hour. It's, my main focus is that thing. So I guess it's still, I'm like in an experiment. How good can I be? That's kind of why I'm still competing. Had I done all those things right in college and won 3 titles, who knows, man? I probably wouldn't be doing this. I probably wouldn't be competing. I know how good I can be. I did it. I won 3 of them. How much better could you get, right? But I mean, I think it all happens the way it's supposed to happen, and who knows? Maybe those unfortunate things that I put myself through in the college years cost me a little bit then, and meaning a national title or 2, and maybe that's why I'm at where I am now. So.
Well, I mean, it seems like you're at a good place to me, and it's cliche, right? But everything happens for a reason. If you want to look at it that way, right?
I think it does, and the timing is, it happens when it's supposed to happen, So.
Yeah, awesome, man. We're coming up on an hour, and it feels like we just started, but we are winding down. We got Kyle Klingman joining us here. He's got a little game we like to play with our guests, and he's going to try to beat you on some questions here.
Hey, thanks, Mark. It's our game called Sweat It Off. I could just point this out. This is your 300th episode. We started with John DeJulius on Monday, and we end with this. Listening to both, it was like identical interviews, identical energy. Kind of the difference was Johnny DeJulius said that he kind of had the foresight not to get into alcohol early on and has never drank. So you guys are both in a situation where you don't drink now, but I don't know what Mark thinks, but it felt like identical interviews, identical energy. They go for the thrill, just different outlets. So it felt the same, and I've never experienced a kind of interview at the beginning of the week and end of the week like this.
Awesome.
I'm a huge fan of his, by the way, man. I follow his Instagram, dude. What a big set of balls that dude's got. And I watched, obviously I saw that episode, and he's like, it's not the absence of fear. He's like, a courageous person is someone who is scared and pushes through it, man. I loved that, man. And I like going up on top of the mountains. I just don't like jumping off of them. That's the difference between me and him. But what a cool motherfucker that guy is, man.
Have you guys met
on the energy?
Have you guys met before? Have you guys met before?
God. I mean, I'm sure we've crossed paths in our wrestling days. I'm just positive we've said hi and, hung out with the same people, but no, like post college, definitely not. No, but I mean, I've spoken with them on Instagram through direct message a couple times, telling them how fucking cool his life is and how my favorite video of this is the one where he's hanging out of the hot air balloon. He's like looking, he's like, "Don't let me go, Johnny! Don't let me go! No, I'm letting go!" And he lets go, and it's filmed from in the hot air balloon, and he's falling down away from it. It's just the coolest video, man. Like, I love that dude.
I'd love to get you two guys together.
Dude, arrange it.
We'll set it up. I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah,
good call, Kyle.
That's a FloFilm right there. Yeah. All right. Our sweat it out. Number 1, Tim Flynn wrestled for Penn State and qualified for nationals 3 times. What was his best finish at nationals?
7th.
You got it. 7th in 1987. Number 2, what town was awarded the title of number 1 sports town in New York on May 15th, 2005?
Oh, God. Oh, my God. I know this. Hilton. No. I don't know. What is it?
Webster.
Webster. That's where I'm from. Is that a joke? How did I not know that? What year? Hold on. What year was that awarded that?
2005.
Dude,
2005.
are you kidding me? That's the year I graduated. This is because of me. I think you're messing with me, right?
That's the whole point.
Seriously? Oh, dude, I'm literally blushing. I'm so embarrassed. I didn't know that.
You made him sweat. That's called sweat it out.
I'm literally sweating from that. All right, next. We got to get away from that question.
Number 3, who was the first NCAA D1 champion in Edinburgh history?
Sean O'Day.
Yep. Sean O'Day in 89.
Featured in another FloFilm about Edinburgh.
Yeah, in the program.
Yep. You nailed it.
Number 4, true or false, trout are classified as oily fish.
Ooh, no, they're salmonoids. No, false.
It's actually true. They're oily fish.
Wow, look at that. I lost a fish. See, I told you I've been away from fishing.
You didn't know he was into climbing. Otherwise, you'd have some climbing questions.
I saw your Patagonia hat on, by the way, with the salmon on it. That's a nice hat.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. Appreciate it. And then number 5, what is the best FloFilm of all time?
Oh man. Well, I would have to be, obviously I'm biased, so I'm gonna go ahead and say, Fight of Your Life. But I went on man, there's so many. That's such an unfair question. I love the Colette ones. Those are like, the Brands one. Metcalf was another fucking, that was like, oh man, that one tugged at the heartstrings. Obviously the program was incredible, and I went on a long rabbit hole binge watching after the Fight of Your Life. I watched that, and then I just kept clicking, and I love the one that I'm in, obviously, but I feel like that should be excluded from me picking just because of the obvious inherent bias. I'm gonna go with the Colette series. Yeah.
Go ahead and we'll say yeah. It's a good one. Very good one.
Yeah.
You sweat it out. Nice work.
That's it? Was that 4 out of 5?
That's 5, yeah.
All right.
3 out of 5.
Only one I get. Wait. Oh, yeah. I got the Webster one.
Yeah,
oh man, that's all right. Gregor, this has been a freaking blast, man. You're a trip. You're bottle energy.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. You're really fun to talk with. We're going to give you the final word. We've gone through a myriad of topics, but anything you want to say about anything, a plug, a hi, a shout out, a joke?
Oh, I mean, I guess it would feel appropriate that I thank all the people who helped me when I needed them. And, back in those trying times in my early 20s when I was getting through something pretty tough, man, I think that the message from that film, I think this would probably be the appropriate way to end this, would be a message about that film, or the message I hope people receive from that film is that you can have a really fucking great life if you can just get through something that you're getting through right now. And it may seem fucking impossible, and it may seem like the biggest fucking mountain that you have to overcome and climb up. You could do it. And there's plenty of fucking people who've done the same thing you have. You are not alone. And it is not something that someone else hasn't been through, and probably worse. You know, if you feel like, oh man, well, that's different. My situation's no, it's not. Every single drug addiction story is extremely similar. So there are a ton of people, tons of resources. And I mean, I hope the message from that video is that there's a fucking fantastic life waiting for you. And I think that, you know, the hardest part is just getting through those first couple days. And when you start to feel normal again and you make, man, what was I doing, man? I was trapped in a merry-go-round that kept spinning. I just couldn't get off of it. And once you get off, you're happy you did. So, and I think, and I'll leave it at this. One of the messages or comments, I'm sorry, that I saw on that, on the film, I don't recall if it was on your guys' Flow account on Instagram or if it was on mine, but it was someone said these exact words: the most important piece Flow has ever done. And I don't want that to sound selfish, because it could have been anyone that's had, you know, a similar story. It was the premise of the film. It was the message of the film. It was the way you guys, the way you put it out there, the way that you edited it all together. It was just so important. I couldn't agree more than what that, I don't know who the person was, obviously, but it was the most important piece Flow has ever done. And it sounds crazy, but probably saved a life or two with that one, you know. So I've had hundreds of messages coming in on Instagram, you know, whether it was someone who had a family member, whether it was someone saying that they were struggling and this is helping them, whether it's someone who had struggled in the past and said, wow, I had no idea, you know, thank you for being so open about that stuff. So who knows if that was the best Flow film. It was certainly a great one, but I agree with it being the most important one. That's for damn sure.
Awesome. Gregor Gillespie, what a joy. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much. We'll have you on again, and we'll track down Johnny DeJulius. We'll get you together.
Make it happen. That would make my day.
I will. Thanks so much, man.
All right.
Appreciate
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate everything you guys do.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
All right. Yeah, bye.
Kyle, wow. I feel pumped up. I wanna just like sprint through the day. This guy's out of control in a good way. Just energy is out of control.
It's insane. You're right. Like I just feel different. I feel like I'm kind of on cloud 9 right now. And so you get that vibe from him. It was, I mean, my jaw just drops hearing him talk about this, and you just keep saying, just keep going, dude. I don't want you to stop. So it was outstanding.
My head's spinning, wound up. We finished the week on that. I really wanted to have Gregor on, and episode 300 seemed appropriate. So we did a Friday show. So that's it. Hope you all have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. For Kyle Klingman and Gregor Gillespie, I'm Mark Bader. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week. Adios.